live.
Hi.
Hello. Hi,
Hello, my friend.
everybody. Hello, Ms. Brittany Imwalle. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. How are you, Miss Sherry?
I'm having fun because, as we were just saying, this is our very first time to do anything like this together. And it's fun to do new things, isn't it?
It's really fun to do new things. And I feel like one of the things I love about my friendship with you is that I feel like we actually are really intentional about making time to do things together, whether it's a picnic in the park or whether it's going to see a movie or whatever, the things. But this is a different way of getting together and being intentional about that too.
I love that. And I love your willingness to just jump in. As we were just saying, hello, everyone, to anybody watching now or later. Brittany and I were on the phone the other day talking about, well, we were talking about a lot of things, but kind of in the context of this loneliness epidemic that's been going on in the world. I think really pointedly things shifted at the pandemic. And so you and I decided we were just going to hop on and talk about friendship, particularly friendship at sort of this older age after 40.
Mm-hmm. And yes, and I will say that my heart of hearts believes that this loneliness epidemic started much before the pandemic, and yet somehow the pandemic made it okay for us all to start talking about it. So, in terms of one of those little silver linings, I feel like we have all been becoming more and more independent, separate, living in our own worlds. For a long, long, long time, life has shifted a lot over the last several decades. But something about the poignancy of the everybody really being deliberately separate during the pandemic let us start to talk about it. And I feel like that's such a great opportunity to be able to start thinking about, like, okay, really, what are the things that we know we're missing, and how do we start to layer that back into our lives?
Oh, I love that, Brittany.
So,
I love that. And as you were saying that, I was going back in my own mind too and thinking, you know what, you're right. Like our whole way of living, particularly, I think we're talking about in our culture here in the United States, but, I think a lot of the world where it's like this whole thing that happened around like the houses that were so separate and living in your own little nuclear families. And I know myself, I long for, something I never had, which was more of sort of like this big, like intentional community kind of feel.
and just that sort of neighbor that just might pop in at some time, or somebody that you just could count on if I'm having a bad day, I just know that there's somebody that's going to be there that I can turn to at the end of it all, or even a great day, just somebody. And so I think that has been, in the, you're right. I think this has been sort of a cultural evolution. It is really tied to sort of our United States culture that we're both living in here. And I think there is that kind of yearning for being seen by other people that
Mm.
really is, really is important. And, it's interesting because in some ways, there were some things about the pandemic that I don't know about you, but when I think back on it, I missed getting to see my parents and my brother and my nieces and, people that matter to me a lot. But we were actually really intentional for a while about having kind of family Zooms where we would kind of just turn on the screen
Yeah.
and sort of live life for a little bit. And it was almost like we got into the daily details of things more so than we do, kind of outside of pandemic times. And we've even now said, like, gosh, we kind of miss that intentional once a week. We'd all hang out for 2 hours together, even though it was on camera, like you and I are doing right now, because there's something about, and I always say this too, like when I'm with friends, um, there's something about when you have somebody come stay at your home versus staying at the hotel down the street, because you can kind of be in those like the liminal spaces of life. And that's kind of where the magic or the real stuff really happens.
Yes.
And so it's, how do you begin to, for me, how do we begin to really invite people into those parts of life that we oftentimes kind of think are private, or we have to be something has to be perfect in order for somebody to be able to come into that. So I'm sitting here right now, and this like if I turn the thing, you can see like my messy, whoopsie, messy countertops and stuff around, and there's dishes over here, and there's just stuff around, and it's kind of like we've shifted as a society that unless everything's like put away and perfect, we can't have anybody in. And it's kind of like, but that's where all the good stuff happens
Oh.
inside. So
I love where you're going with all this. And you know this, and some people know this because I've written about it, but that I just spent a month with my friend Trisha at her home in Canada. And it was so beautiful, exactly like what you're saying, like to be able to be in your pajamas for one thing, like to have messy hair and no makeup, and just to have that, which of course we could have more of. And I think this is maybe we're maybe we're landing on like one thing that would be easy. I'm thinking in my own life to change, which is that not presenting,
mhm.
right? That would be very easy, and it's one way, a really great way to connect with people.
It's a great way to connect with people. It's a great way to connect with people. Another, and this is actually straight from the US Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy, he says, invite somebody over to share a meal. And it doesn't have to be elaborate. It can actually be really simple, and it can even, you and I have done this, just sharing a picnic.
I know.
And so there is something about both. I think the other thing that I think is that I think we all kind of walk around with the assumption that like, well, everybody else is really busy doing other things and has all these people in their lives. And I'm the one that doesn't have the person in my life, or I'm the one that's really looking for something that other people already have. And I think it's not true. And I think that there are a lot of us that are sort of going around in life saying, gosh, it would be really nice to be, sitting around a table with a couple of other people, just having, an easy conversation. And so sometimes it can feel kind of big and scary, but just that invitation to say, hey, do you want to do this? And Sherry, you've done that for me. So, hey, do you want to just meet me down by, the park bench? Hey, how about I hop on the ferry and I come over, or I'll, say, hey, I'm driving through town. Let's just grab a quick coffee. Those kinds of things, I think, actually go a long way toward showing somebody, hey, I'm interested in you and I care about you. And let's make a bit of time for us to build a friendship.
Yeah. Oh, Brittany, I feel a little teary. It's interesting, right? This is really tapping into something. Yesterday, I hosted a grief group for my work, and this is a form of grief. Loneliness is definitely, and when I host this group, I say it's loss of any kind. And there were some people there who were, their friendships had shifted, and they felt like they'd lost these close connections. And one of the things, the reason I'm bringing this up is something that came up that a lot of people were posting in chat was, I isolate because I'm afraid of being vulnerable because everyone else seems to have it so together. Just exactly what you're saying, right? That there's this, and I know I feel that way too sometimes. People who know me, and I posted a lot about it when my son first went away to college, about that sort of extreme, like, oh my gosh, I don't know who I am. I feel so lonely. I miss the hoopla in the house. But sometimes it can feel, I think, maybe we're vulnerable, but then we're like, oh, okay, I can't, I can't be too vulnerable, or people what? I don't know what the rest of that sentence is.
Right. My mess will be too big and they will kind of go, oh, that's really messy over there. But then the other piece of that is that, and there is I think there is the connection comes when we actually are willing to show some of those parts of ourselves. Because guess what? A lot of people are feeling, if it's not, grief around, my house doesn't feel as full because my kids are at college. It's something else that has, there are some shared emotional experiences, I think, that we can all relate to. And that's, I think, one of the beauties of life is being able to find those points of connection with other people.
I so agree. I so agree. And it's so funny. This is a related topic, but also one that I find myself talking about a lot lately, which is that it's so hard for so many of us to reach out and ask for help,
Mm.
right? And I think it's a similar thing that it's like, I don't want to be too much, or I don't want to be a burden. I don't, oh, Brittany's so busy. She has her whole beautiful, perfect family. She doesn't have time I mean, I don't think that about you, but I could if I didn't know you, do you know?
Well, and I mean, Sherry, I feel like this is one where it's like what is it? Hi, pot, I'm kettle, you're black. Like, I know how, and I think it feels so good when other people do ask me for help. I go, oh my gosh, they're willing to trust me with whatever it is. Yes, I want to do that. Or, if there's a reason I can't, of course, that happens too. But usually, yes, please. But boy, do I have a hard time asking for help myself, unless it is those relationships that, yeah, it feels like there has to be sort of a level of trust, or kind of like kind of eyeing each other of like, hey, I think there might be something here. Do you think there might be something here? And then sometimes that asking for help actually can be a pathway in, right?
100%. And you just said it. And I feel this way all the time. Like when people reach out to me, it's such a blessing and an honor
Mhm.
because I mean, it does instantly open a door to a deeper intimacy, which I think so many of us want.
Absolutely. And there's something about that, asking for help that sort of implies, oh, you might trust me with this thing that you need. And that sort of implied or granted trust, I think, is really important too.
Well, I want to ask you something. I'm going to switch gears for just a sec because I'm looking at you and I'm feeling this deep like love and appreciation. And I just want to tell people, so you and I, we have been friends. We're new friends,
We
newish.
were new friends. Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
has it been 2 years?
Maybe since we like first met, but I think, but as we've talked about a lot, Sherry, like we met and then we didn't even see each other for, we met, like we were introduced by a mutual friend who said, I think you two. And here's Sherry without me even knowing her. I said, hey, would you help me with this thing that I'm doing? And she immediately said, oh my gosh, yes. But we sort of did connect immediately just through a call like this. And then when we got to meet each other in person, it was like, oh, wow, this is amazing. But it's been maybe a year and a half, 2 years.
Right. And so the reason that I felt like I wanted to bring that in is because my squawky poly monkey mind will say, oh goodness, it's so hard to make friends. It's so hard to meet new people. It's so hard to feel connected. But I have evidence right here in front of me. And I'm saying this to anybody who might be listening that it's possible. I mean, I'm a year, not even a year away from being 60, right? So I'm headed into 60 and it's still possible to make amazing new friends. And
Yeah.
yeah.
And the other part I'll say yes, and it doesn't just happen. I will also say you and I have both put deliberate effort into this, and have prioritized. I think that, I'll speak for myself, but I feel like upon meeting you, Sherry, it was like, ooh, this is a person that I
Mm-hmm.
feel really drawn to, and somebody who I like how I feel when I'm around her. And I feel like we have this give and take that just is really, there's some great, I always walk away from spending time with you feeling like I'm like skipping. I maybe walk to where I'm going, but then I skip away because it's been so great. And so when I have that feeling, I think, yeah, I would like to spend more time with her, and I want to, and then it's not just, and then I want to be there for you and show up for you in your life. And so I feel like we have built a new friendship, but it also didn't just fall out of the sky.
Yeah. And so I love all of this. You've used the word intentional a few times, and I think it's super important in
Hmm.
all of it, right? So, and I want to give a shout out to Samantha who introduced us, right? Because that was very intentional on her part. And to me, that's another little clue of what we could be doing. I just remembered something that has, sorry, I'm interrupting myself, but
Nope.
I remember once I was interviewing someone and she told me about an awesome people party that they were doing during the pandemic on Zoom, where everybody brought somebody awesome to the Zoom call and introduced everybody so that it was a way that people could meet. And that's kind of like what Samantha does, I think, naturally.
Love that. She does that so naturally. But Sherry, that is such a like a great way of inviting people in and saying, you're amazing and you're amazing and you too. And then it's kind of taking it a click further, just like Samantha did. And it's not just you're amazing, now go figure it out, but it was like, and here's why. Here's this, here's Sherry's background. This is why you're going to be so drawn to her. And I, think maybe she had done the same for you of, hey, here's Brittany. This is a little bit about what she's all about.
Yes.
Think you guys are going to really love each other. But again, that takes a little bit more time than just saying, awesome, awesome, go play. But that little bit of extra effort to kind of describe like, and here's how I think you're really going to connect. Because that gave us some great, I don't know, I think of it as like hooks to hold things on first meeting, right? And then we could kind of take it from there.
Right. So what I'm really, I mean, we've only been talking, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes, but it's like I'm starting to understand a little bit more about, in this kind of, quote unquote new world that we live in, and how to be more intentional about both meeting people myself, but bringing together people. Like, bless her heart, Samantha, for doing that, and Linda, who invented the Awesome People Party, right? That it's like having that knowledge that it's like, this world, we need each other more.
We do need each other more. Yes, absolutely. And how can we each be maybe the thing where being is like, oh, if we all need each other more, how can we keep that kind of in our focus as we go about our days and think about how we can. And I don't think it necessarily is the part that I struggle with, and I'm curious about your thoughts on this, Sherry, is one of the things I find as time marches on too is that as much as I want to keep creating new friendships, I also am having this like desire to sort of focus in and to really like pay attention in some specific places. And so what's going through my mind is like, how can we both create connection for people, and yet we don't have to become we don't each have to be walking around with 200, best friends, but how can we actually create the connections? Because there is something, in order to put the time in to be a really great friend, it does actually take time to do that. So there's some balance of that, right? Of showing up for people and then yet honoring some of the deep relationships that I think we want.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's really,
that kind of.
I'm super glad you brought that up, right? Because that is, that is a something. That is just
Yeah.
and one of the things that's dropping in for me that I started doing with my Simply Celebrate community, but I often will invite not close friends, but sort of people that I like, but that I never really connect with very much, to do 15-minute, I just call it a coffee clatch on Zoom. It's just 15 minutes, and I'm really good with boundaries. And it's amazing to me how much can happen in 15 minutes. I mean, you and I have been talking for just a tiny bit over 15, and
Yeah.
very rich. And so it's one of the things that has helped me. I mean, I wanted to do it because it's like I wanted to just meet some of these, names who are on my, mailing list, but then now they're like people I love, right? When I meet them.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe there's something for me, and I'd be interested to hear for you, Brittany, but there's something also about like, it doesn't always have to be a huge thing to connect.
Oh, I agree so much. And there's something that it can feel just so great. Yeah, I agree with that so much. And I guess, you know me, I'm wired to feel like we have a whole world of amazing people walking around. And I feel like any moment that you get to connect and go like just a little bit below the surface with anybody, and whether it's just having a quick conversation when you're getting groceries or, waiting at the crosswalk for the light to turn or something. It's amazing how just, hi, how are you? How is your day today? It's amazing. There's nothing better than somebody kind of going, "Oh, hi," and you get that little bit of something. And so, yeah, I agree with you. It does not everyone has to be really deep, really involved. There's something beautiful just about I see you, and you are here, and you matter, and that's beautiful too.
I love this. I love that we're sort of this exactly. So first of all, it's just fun to just explore a topic with somebody, right? Like I love this. Um, but I love that we're looking at it from different. I just came from a dance class at the rec center where none of those people are my friend. You know, they're not. I don't see any of them outside of. But I do make it a point to, if someone's standing next to, to ask their name and a few things about them and that connection. And I know studies have shown that, like, those are super important in our lives.
And that's what then yeah, and that feels great. And maybe, I don't know this, maybe those bits of connection each give us like that little bit of thinking of it as like a spark or something that then kind of ignites something that we want to go out in the world and either have that kind of connection with other people, or maybe it's the thing that gives you the energy to sort of like create a deeper connection as well. I think there's room for
Exactly.
both. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Hmm.
there's no, I mean, I think this is partly, there's no right answer, of
So,
course.
yeah.
But what I love, and I know that, we said we were going to talk for about 20 minutes and we're almost at that time, but I really love your willingness to just leap into this conversation. And I know and I will post the information below this that you're actually hosting a retreat.
I am. And, and the whole, you started this at the beginning with kind of the why is that I really am passionate about this epidemic of loneliness and lack of connection. And so I'm calling it Better Together because I think we are better when we are together. And it's, I think that, kind of my whole impetus for doing this kind of work that I do is that I think when we are, exposed to new people, new relationships, new ideas, we become inspired, and then we go back to our daily lives with, again, that kind of skip in our step, and we can be even more for all the people that depend on us. So that Better Together idea is really sort of the anchor for what we're doing for a whole day, all about how do you make incredible connections. And I'm excited you're going to be a part of it, Sherry. It's
I
going to be
am too. I mean, I've really been honored to be a part of a couple of the things that you've done with the Rome Collaborative. And I'm, I love that, these gatherings of people that you've pulled together. And I do feel like that's a huge spark. And how I feel so touched all of a sudden. Like I just want to
Oh,
cry.
thank you.
You
That,
know,
that is why I do this. So if that's happening, that's the best feedback I can ever possibly get. So thank you.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and post the link, but just if the people are, particularly if you're in the Bay Area, because it will be taking place in, is it Half Moon Bay?
Just a little bit south of Half Moon Bay. Yes.
Yeah.
Uh,
Um,
May 17th. So yes.
we'll post the link. But again, I want to thank you so much, Brittany, because I feel like, again, it's been 20 minutes and the amount of, I feel like new synapses that are connecting, right?
I'm so grateful for the invitation. And Sherry, I hope everybody that is watching gets a little glimpse of why I love you so much, because I feel like every time we have just kind of let's just maybe, and we have these teeny tiny little explore conversations that then kind of, bloom into something really incredible. And I feel like I leave every conversation with kind of all of these, you said synapses, but yeah, my mind is just filled with ideas about things that feel important to me that I want to explore and keep learning about.
And I think this is, it's kind of meta, right? So it's like I feel like I've just gotten to have with you the experience that really fuels me, right? It's somebody I love. I know we're not like literally across the table, but I feel like we are. It's someone I love across the table, and we're talking about something that matters, and we're talking about something that I feel helps me to grow and to go out. And I think this is a big part of it. My mentor, Brendan Burchard, has said that people are very discouraged right now. It's not just the loneliness, but there's a discouragement. And that the more that we can all like spark, like you keep saying, I think it helps lift that discouragement, and it helps us to all feel like there's more possible. And
Oh,
you
I love that.
do
I
that.
love that vision. That is that is my hope for the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're certainly doing a lot toward making that
Well,
all
and
possible.
and likewise. So thank you so much for inviting me to jump in across the virtual table from you today, Sherry. This has been so fun.
Absolutely. Well, let's do it again.
I
Let's
can't
do it
wait.
again.
All
I
right.
love you. Bye,
Love you.
everyone.
Bye.
Yay.